The views and opinions expressed in the DILLIGAF podcast are those of the host alone and are not intended to express those of any other person, business, or entity. The DILLIGAF podcast is for entertainment only. These are my opinions and should not be interpreted as facts or advice. Think for yourself.
Keeps you up at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong. You got me like, oh, yeah. I think that we've all had enough.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the DILLIGAF podcast, talking about anything and everything that interests me. If it makes me think, laugh, cry, scream, rage, or say what the fuck, you're going to hear about it. My name's Tom. I'm your host. Thank you to everybody for checking out the show on YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, or wherever you get your podcast from. Make sure you're following on social media. It's at DILLIGAF_pod on all the socials. Make sure you follow, like, subscribe, share, rate, comment, all that kind of fun stuff. Really does help out the show. And you can find all that and more on my Linktree, which is Linktree/DILLIGAF_pod, or scan the little QR code right there in the corner of your screen. And if you ever want to shoot me an email, it's dilligafpod@gmail.com. So we got an interesting topic this week. It's one that's fascinated me for a long time. And today we are talking about language. And not language as in like English, Spanish, different languages, but English as in language as in the way that we speak, specifically language on television, because it has changed and evolved a lot over the years. I mean, a whole lot. When TV first became a thing, you couldn't say shit on TV. And I don't mean just the word shit. I mean, you couldn't say anything that could even be perceived as like risque or edgy or anything like that. I mean, if we go back way back in the day, it was a real popular show called I Love Lucy. I don't know how many of y'all even know about that show anymore. I know I used to watch reruns of it when I was a kid, but that was one of the big examples of you could not say the word pregnant on television, which always blew my mind because pregnant, that's like there's nothing improper or inappropriate about that word. It just means a woman is going to have a baby. But the reason I bring up I Love Lucy is because this was one of the most well-known cases of this. When the main actress, Lucille Ball, she was pregnant in real life, so of course her character on the show was pregnant, but they could not say she was pregnant. She was always with child, or she was expecting, or my personal favorite, she's in the family way. Who the hell talks like that? Like, ever? Who the hell has talked like that? But that's what they had to say. I mean, at that time, you could not even depict a husband and wife sleeping in the same bed. Like, same show. Lucille Ball and her real life husband, Desi Arnaz at the time, were the two stars of the show. But if there was ever a scene with them in their bedroom, they had twin fucking beds. How the hell did she get pregnant? So you could not even imply in any kind of way any type of like sexual anything. That's how uptight the world was at the time. So, and like I said, when she was pregnant, she was always with child or expecting or something like that. And actually the first television couple, husband and wife, to actually share a bed on screen, believe it or not, were the Munsters. A lot of people think it was the Brady Bunch. No, the Munsters did it first. Lily and Herman Munster was the first married TV couple to sleep in the same bed. So that just kind of shows you how restricted and censored it was back in the 50s and 60s. And if you fast forward a little bit, it started to loosen up. You'd hear words like hell and damn, and occasionally you'd hear the word ass if they wanted to be really edgy, but not ass as in a part of the anatomy, but you could say somebody was being an ass or something like that. it was still very, there were very stringent rules on what could be said and how it could be said, like the context of it. And if you really wanted to be edgy, you could throw the word bastard in there once in a while. Like, good example of that is an episode of the TV show The Jeffersons. It was in the episode there was a flashback to the day uh, that Martin Luther King was assassinated. George Jefferson was in his dry cleaner, and somebody come, there's a bunch of noise out in the street. Somebody comes running by saying they killed Martin Luther King, and George Jefferson like loses it and just screams, "You bastard!" and breaks the window. That was edgy at that time. But one thing that always got me, you were so restricted with profanity, for lack of a better term, but you would hear racial slurs here and there without a problem on shows like The Jeffersons or Sanford and Son or like oh God, what was that one show? Chico and the Man. I'm dating myself with some of this shit. But you would hear racial slurs against like black or Latino people. Especially, they would do episodes about racism that were to be taken more seriously, even if it was a sitcom. But it always seemed like those were like racial slurs were more accepted than profanity, which blows my mind. I remember one in particular, and again, this is going way back. Sammy Davis Jr. was on an episode of All in the Family, talking to Archie Bunker, one of the most racist television characters of all time. And, it was, I mean, obviously that episode was about racism, but there were slurs thrown around without much care. And you fast forward a little bit more, getting into the 80s, you could still say like hell and damn and ass, and you'd hear bitch and bastard sprinkled in here and there if they really wanted to be edgy. And then as we moved into the 90s, there was like a shift. I want to say in the mid to late 90s, maybe a little earlier than that, but there was a shift with shows like NYPD Blue, which was a cop show. They were one of the first ones to say the word shit on primetime television. And there was a big deal made out of this. Or there was another episode, same show. One of the cops called somebody a dickhead. That was revolutionary at that time. And I was thinking about one of George Carlin's things. Yes, I'm going back to George Carlin. I talk about him a lot on this show. Get over it. But one of his big routines was the seven dirty words that you can't say on television. Shit, piss, fuck, cunt, cocksucker, motherfucker, and tits. Those were the seven words you couldn't say on television because they had no other meanings. And eventually his list evolved into hundreds of things, but those are like the seven core words that you could not say on television ever under any circumstances. And they kind of broke that in the, like I said, in the 90s when you did start hearing occasionally the word shit on TV, but it always had to be like after 9 p.m. or like 9 p.m. Central Time at least, I think. Or no, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Sorry. But yeah, especially on like more dramatic, serious type shows, you would hear more stuff like that. And to me, that made it more real because that's how people talk. People swear. That's real life. So to me, it made those shows more realistic. And then as we kept moving along, that became more accepted, and you would hear again like the word shit. Obviously, that was a big one. South Park did a whole episode on that where they said it like 163 times in a half an hour, which was great. I definitely recommend that episode. But you fast forward a little bit more and start getting into basic cable shows, which is obviously not network broadcast television, but it's basic cable, which most people had. it would be a little more prevalent, especially with shows like The Shield, is one of my all-time favorite television shows. And they not even just the language on The Shield, but you would see and you saw it a little bit with NYPD Blue, and The Shield took it to a whole nother level. But you would start seeing like some aspects of nudity as well with men and women. It wasn't, they didn't discriminate. And but like I said, The Shield took it to a whole nother level with that. And again, The Shield is one of my all-time favorite television shows. And but you would hear, besides just shit, you would hear the word dick being used or the word pussy being used. And yeah, I probably should have put a parental advisory at the beginning of this episode, but if anybody's letting their kids listen to me, something's wrong. So, whatever. But again, getting back to The Shield, you would hear a lot of like sexual stuff and see a lot of sexual stuff going on. And again, this was a show that was on. It was still a primetime show, but it was on later at night. It was on at like 9 o'clock at night. That seems to be the cutoff is like 9 p.m. is when you can just kind of go buck wild with whatever you say on TV. So the Shield was a big one with that, and then after the Shield went off the air, the next show, and again, another one of my all-time favorite shows, Sons of Anarchy, took it even further with the sexual content and the profanity and things like that. And then you move a little bit further along into the spin-off show from Sons of Anarchy called Mayans. And I'm just using these shows as examples. These aren't the only ones doing this stuff. But you get into the show Mayans, you start hearing the word fuck on television. And at this point, you can say pretty much anything on TV as long as you do it late enough at night. Though those seven dirty words from George Carlin, that doesn't mean anything anymore. You hear all seven of them. And once again, that list was shit, piss, fuck, cunt, cocksucker, motherfucker, and tits. And you hear all of those on TV now, depending on what time of day it is. There's really very little restrictions, and there's still people having a fit about it, especially uptight conservative people having a fit. Oh, they shouldn't have that kind of language until kids could hear it. If you're letting your kids watch Sons of Anarchy and The Shield and Mayans and oh God, Breaking Bad and all that kind of shit, that's on you. I mean, if children are watching those shows, talk to their fucking parents. Because they're the ones to blame, not the people making the TV shows. I've said this my whole life. Television and movies and video games and athletes are not responsible for raising other people's children. So if you don't want your kids watching something, don't let them watch it. If you know, if you have a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 year old, don't put on Sons of Anarchy while they're running around the living room. Wait till they go to bed. It's really not that difficult of a concept. But yeah, and now, especially since streaming services now are the primary way that people get their TV shows and movies, they don't have the restrictions that you would on like broadcast TV. You can literally say anything. You can say anything because it's pretty much it's like a paid service. It's like having HBO back in the day. If you wanted to see a movie uncut with all the swear words in there and all that stuff, you had HBO. That's where you saw it. That's where they allowed all the profanity. It was pretty much unrestricted, whatever. Well, that's what streaming services are now. They don't have those restrictions put on them. So you can say and do pretty much anything. That's why I think you see so many original shows on streaming service. That's why you see so many Netflix shows and movies, and Hulu has original shows, and Max and all the other streaming services. They all have original programming. And I think that's one of the big selling points of having original programming on a streaming service is that you don't have the restrictions put on you as if you were putting a show on, say, Fox or ABC or NBC or something like that. You can get away with anything, literally. And I see that as a good thing. I mean, I understand the need for restrictions on broadcast television when it comes to language and content and things like that, because children do watch it, especially earlier in the day and things like that. So you want to make sure that it's suitable, I guess would be the best word. And I don't view that as censorship. I don't view that as a First Amendment violation. It's just it rules. It's that's just the way it is. But it's definitely loosened up from back in the day. Because, like I said, you couldn't even refer to a woman as being pregnant. God forbid you had any gay TV characters or anything like that. That those subjects 99% of the time weren't even broached at all. And if it was, again, it was edgy. You had censors and standards and practices people from networks going crazy because of what you could say and how you could say it. Another example of kind of the ridiculous restrictions, and it all seems to center around sex. People are very squeamish when it comes to sex for some reason, at least in America. But there was a TV show called A Different World. It was a spinoff of The Cosby Show. Not going to get into any of that, but there was one episode. I think they were making a time capsule or something like that, and something that one of the students in the show, it took place at a college. One of the students in the show was putting in the time capsule was putting a condom in the time capsule, and apparently there was a big ordeal about whether they could say the word condom or whether they could actually show a condom like in the package on the show. They had to pick. They couldn't do both. Well, like when they asked this guy, well, what are you putting in the time capsule? And where's your contribution to the time capsule? He says it's in my pocket. He could not pull it out and show it. They asked him what it was. He said it's a condom. And this is at a time, well, it's still a big thing. I don't want to say it's not anymore, but it was much more prevalent back then that AIDS and STIs and things like that were there was major concerns about those kind of things, and so that's why he was putting a condom into the time capsule. But I guess the network people said, you can either say it or you can show it. You can't do both. Fucking ridiculous, honestly. That's one of the most ridiculous things I ever heard. And like I said, now if you're watching a Netflix show or a Hulu show, it's just like watching something on HBO back in the day. They can say and do and show pretty much anything. And I view that as good. It takes a lot of the restrictions away. It allows for writers and actors and producers and directors and stuff like that to more fully express themselves without having to confine themselves within such a tight set of rules. And I think that adds to the realism of any TV show. And it doesn't have to be about a real world topic, but I think it makes it more relatable to me anyway, because that's how people talk. I mean, I'm a foul-mouthed motherfucker myself. I think y'all know that already from if you listen to this. But that's how people talk. People swear, especially when there's circumstances involved, whether they're angry or scared or who knows what. If there's emotion involved, people are more likely to drop an F-bomb here and there. And to depict that on a show or a movie, I think adds an element of realism to it, no matter what the subject matter might be. It could be something completely you know, out in left field. It could be like something science fiction or whatever, but having them talk like real people adds an element of realism. It makes it more relatable, and to me makes it more enjoyable because I'm one of these people. If I'm sitting here watching a TV show and people are just talking very proper and that kind of thing, I'm sitting here like nobody fucking talks like that. So I personally think it's a very good thing that TV has come so far with language and what they're able to show. And yeah, it's just like I said, it's a topic that's always fascinated me. Language in general fascinates me. That's one of the reasons I love George Carlin so much because he talked so much about the language that we use and how ridiculous it can be at times. So yeah, I've always found this to be an interesting topic, but I think that's pretty much gonna wrap it up. Just want to talk about how far the evolution of language on television has come from the point where you couldn't even say the word pregnant or depict a married couple as sharing the same bed to now we can say fuck as much as we want and on occasion show it as well. So yeah, I make myself laugh. If I don't do it, nobody else is going to. But that's gonna wrap us up for this week. I think that is the evolution of language on television. Hope you guys found it interesting and look some of this stuff up. Look up some of these old TV shows and listen to the way that they would talk. Specifically, look up the one that I was talking about, I Love Lucy, when she was pregnant with her child. They would never ever say the word. And when she had the kid on the show, I don't even think they said the word labor. They just said she's having the baby. But yeah, she was never pregnant. She was always with child, expecting in the family way or some weird shit like that. And who the fuck ever talked that way? But yeah, look some of this stuff up and then compare it to the shows that are on TV or on streaming services now, and just look how different it is with the way that people speak. It's fascinating to me, and yeah, I love it. So, but that's gonna wrap me up for this week. Thank you again, everybody, for checking out the show on Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, or wherever you get your podcast from. Make sure to follow, like, subscribe, share, rate, comment, all that kind of stuff really does help out the show as far as placement and searches and stuff like that. Make sure you're following on social media. It's at DILLIGAF_pod on all the socials. And if you ever want to shoot me an email, it's DILLIGAFpod@gmail.com. And you can find all that and much, much more at my link tree, which is linktree/DILLIGAF_pod, or scan a little QR code right there in the corner of the screen, and you'll find links to pretty much everything. So with that, I'm going to wrap things up. And as always, if anyone has any issues with anything that I have said here today, ask yourself one question. Do I look like I give a fuck?
'Cause we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution.